It's an edgy cartoon about crime-fighting cryptids, a situational dramedy about dysfunctional families, a mix of urban fantasy, cultural myths, and science fiction. Gargoyles is all of those things, but keep watching to find out what only adults notice when they watch it. Think back to the 1980s and early 90s, and you won't recall too many shows that embrace long-form storytelling the way many shows do today. Plots that move their way through dozens of episodes or more, and characters whose stories grow and evolve over the course of shows from that era are fairly rare. Alongside other like-minded programs, such as X-Men the Animated Series, Disney's Gargoyles helped normalize animated television following characters across series-long journeys. Characters grow and change from episode to episode, their relationships evolve, and they learn lessons that carry them into future stories. At the same time, events that take place as far back as the pilot episode, set 1,000 years in the past, remain relevant well into the second season. According to creator Greg Weisman, his staff of writers worked hard to create a complex web of connected stories, characters, and events that build a rich series-spanning tapestry. Weisman wrote on his website's expansive FAQ, "Some of it was dumb luck, serendipity. Other times we planned ahead. Personally, I had some long-term plans." Originally, Weisman envisioned Gargoyles as one sprawling, serialized saga, which has long been the custom for comic books and daytime soap operas. In the end, that approach became key to the show's appeal. In many kids' action cartoons, heroes are good, villains are bad, and that's all you need to know. In Gargoyles, things aren't quite so black and white. The show includes baddies with agendas that aren't necessarily limited to total destruction or world domination. Xanatos, a ranked member of the Illuminati, is mostly driven by wealth and power, only resorting to violence when it's necessary. Surprisingly, he becomes an ally of Goliath and company by the end of the series. Demona, a villainous gargoyle, is determined to wipe out humanity, viewing herself as a crusader for justice. Derek Maza, who becomes the mutant Talon, has a tragic backstory and mostly turns to crime as a means to regain his humanity. Some antagonists aren't really villains at all, more victims of unfortunate misunderstandings. The immortal man Macbeth initially seeks to use the Gargoyles for his own vengeful ends, but eventually reveals himself as a noble warrior whose anguish twisted him into an unscrupulous anti-hero. The kids in the audience might not realize these details sets Gargoyles apart from the after-school animation pack, but adults can certainly pick up on it. Apart from a routine fight for justice, Gargoyles often centers its stories on the timeless lessons of parenting. The elder gargoyle, Hudson, acts as the family's wise grandfather-like figure, offering Goliath counsel on how to best teach his youthful clan. Goliath often fills the role of a reluctant surrogate father to the younger gargoyles, Lexington, Brooklyn, and Broadway.
The three of you may explore, but stay close to the building and stay out of sight.
Goliath eventually finds himself with his own direct offspring, Angela, his daughter with Demona. Several stories focus on Goliath and Angela's relationship. Goliath struggles to accept her at first, but he learns to embrace his new fatherly role over time. Other complex parent-child relationships include Xanatos and his father, and Goliath and his clone, Thailog. Any parent who has had to watch their child go astray can relate to the pain Goliath feels watching Thailog turn evil. The show's parental themes encompass human characters, gargoyles, and the magical beings of Avalon, but they might fly over kids' heads. Gargoyles began airing shortly after the 1994 conclusion of sci-fi TV staple Star Trek: The Next Generation, and immediately became a new home for two of TNG's biggest stars, Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis, who play Commander William Riker and Counselor Deanna Troi, respectively, voice David Xanatos and Demona. But Frakes and Sirtis weren't the only actors to cross over from Star Trek. During the original two-season run of Gargoyles, nearly a dozen actors from multiple Star Trek series lent their vocal talents. Michael Dorn, Worf on TNG, voices Goliath's brother, Coldstone. Brett Spiner, the iconic TNG android, breathes life into the mischievous trickster Puck. Nichelle Nichols, Uhura, in the original 1960s Star Trek series, voices Diane, the mother of Talon and Elisa Maza. Star Trek Voyager star Kate Mulgrew even appears as the magical queen Titania. Other notable Star Trek alumni, including LeVar Burton, Colm Meaney, and Avery Brooks, make one-off appearances that liven up their episodes. We talk about diversity and representation in sci-fi and fantasy much more today than we did in the 90s. In that respect, Gargoyles was way ahead of its time by showcasing a wide array of cultures and backgrounds. Elisa Maza, the show's sole human lead character, was not a typical cartoon hero by mid-90s standards. When we meet her family, we learn that her father is of Native American descent and her mother's family comes from Nigeria. Heroes and villains from Gargoyles hail from across the globe, with BIPOC characters appearing regularly throughout the series. During the Avalon World Tour arc in Season 2, Gargoyles introduces the viewers to several new figures, human and gargoyle alike, from countries including Japan, Egypt, and Guatemala. The wide range of cultural and ethnic backgrounds represented on Gargoyles helped it become a landmark series. Alongside its many sci-fi, fantasy, and magical elements, Gargoyles weaves plenty of real-world cultural myths into its ever-expansive universe. In the world of Gargoyles, which is itself inspired by old Scottish tales of stone statues, folklore is entirely real, and the source of a number of supernatural beings seen throughout the series. Sometimes they're friends, and sometimes they're foes. In the episode The Hound of Ulster, Goliath, Elisa, and Angela arrive in Ireland and encounter a hero and a villain from local mythology, the warrior Cuchulainn and his greatest enemy, a malevolent banshee. The episode Mark of the Panther sees the gang in Africa, where they meet Anansi, a major folktale character who takes the form of a giant spider. In the episode Double Jeopardy, they even encounter the Egyptian death god Anubis.
Rich and poor, young and old, all are equal in death.
To go along with these historical legends, Gargoyles also include some modern myths that some kids probably assume are just wild animated adventures. For example, the episode Sentinel reveals the fictional alien origins of the Easter Island heads. Apparently, Greg Weisman's love of tall tales isn't limited to ancient legends. Each Gargoyles episode is more than a mere adventure. They often end with an important message, a lesson for kids and adults alike. Of course, many children's shows from the 80s and 90s attempt to cultivate positive values in their young audiences, but Gargoyles never gets as heavy-handed as the likes of G.I. Joe or Captain Planet and the Planeteers. Nearly every episode of Gargoyles puts a major character into a difficult situation with a challenging moral dilemma. They might make a critical mistake, but they usually learn a lesson in the process. Some of these lessons are as simple as judging between right and wrong. Other times, the lesson might pertain to an internal problem a character needs to focus on overcoming. The series tackles various social issues too. The landmark episode Deadly Force addresses gun violence when Broadway accidentally shoots Elisa, causing him to despise firearms. The episode A Lighthouse in the Sea of Time brings up the difficult topic of adult illiteracy, with Hudson struggling with shame due to his inability to read. After losing his way at daybreak, Hudson meets a new friend who teaches him it's never too late to learn something new. The series deals with important topics like crime, poverty, and class inequality, leaving viewers with something to think about, even if the kids watching don't realize it immediately. As non-human beasts living in New York City, Goliath and his clan are forced to keep their existence a secret. They hide from the fear and hostility they correctly expect from ordinary humans. Yet despite their cautious posture towards outsiders, Goliath forms a bond with Elisa, leading to a star-crossed romance. However, it's the story of Demona that might best exemplify the show's attempts to explore the roots of xenophobia. In recurring flashbacks that begin in 994 AD, Goliath's one-time mate becomes immortal and witnesses mankind's brutality toward her people throughout the centuries. She and her numerous gargoyle clans are persecuted and exterminated by the humans, led by Gilkamgain, a gargoyle hunter who passes his irrational hatred down through the generations.
Demona!
The Hunter! How many times must I destroy you?
Over the course of its run, Gargoyles presents bigotry and intolerance as more dangerous than any villain. In the final episodes of the second season, Gilkamgain's descendants stir up public fear of Gargoyles, and it takes a newly reformed Xanatos to save them. Ultimately, Gargoyles demonstrates the dangers of intolerance, hopefully influencing its young audiences to be loving towards others. The drama on Gargoyles is far-reaching, deep, and complex. Dare we call it Shakespearean? Tragic villains, family turmoil, and love and loss form the basis for many episodes, as is the case for the best of Shakespeare's plays. Some character names of the Gargoyles universe, such as Puck, Macbeth, Oberon, and Titania, are directly lifted from major Shakespearean characters. Considerable chunks of Gargoyles mythology are borrowed from the plays Macbeth and A Midsummer Night's Dream, and the backstory of the Gargoyles villain Macbeth mirrors the play of the same name. At one point in the series, we learn that many of the fantastical mythology-based characters we've met are called the Children of Oberon. They're offspring of the King of the Fairies, as referenced in A Midsummer Night's Dream. To children of the 90s, gargoyles must have seemed like any other fantasy cartoon with mighty gods, monsters, and magical beings. Adults at the time, much as now, might notice how Gargoyles informs its young audience about classic literature without making it feel like homework. In addition to historical influences ranging from Shakespeare to Old World folklore, Gargoyles flies into the territory of film noir and mystery now and again. Matt Bluestone, Elisa's partner in the NYPD, serves as a clear homage to old-school detective stories. Never is this more on display than his two solo stories, The Silver Falcon and Revelations. Titled as an homage to the film noir classic The Maltese Falcon, the former episode centers on Matt's quest to uncover the truth behind the Illuminati, a secret society that has allegedly existed for centuries. Matt goes missing, prompting Elisa and Broadway to team up and track him down in the style of the old detective movies Broadway has recently been enjoying on TV. Revelations serves as a follow-up to The Silver Falcon, in which an aging gangster called Mace Malone offers Matt membership into the Illuminati. Told in flashbacks, Revelations has all the hallmarks of an old-school pulp mystery, and Gargoyles makes no attempt to hide its use of tried-and-true classic film noir tropes. When you think of Gargoyles, its fantasy elements are probably the first things that pop into your mind. Whether it's the magic spell that put the Gargoyles into 1,000 years slumber or their encounters with King Arthur, Macbeth, and the Fey trickster, Puck, the series seems firmly planted into the fantasy genre. However, Gargoyles also mixes in sci-fi, including aliens, virtual realities, and time travel. Even in the first handful of episodes, Xanatos builds an army of robotic gargoyle copies, but nowhere is this blending of genres more evident than in the character of Coldstone, Goliath's long-lost brother. Found in pieces after being smashed centuries ago, Coldstone is resurrected by Xanatos using science and sorcery, specifically a magic spell to reform his mind and robotic augmentations to reconstruct his body.
As you said, it's alive.
Though such genre bending might be more commonplace today, it was likely not something many kids paid attention to in the 1990s. After the second season of Gargoyles, the series returned for a third, featuring a new status quo and an all-new title. The previous season had ended with the existence of the Gargoyles being revealed to the world and an unexpected rescue from their persistent foe, Xanatos. Gargoyles: The Goliath Chronicles began airing on Saturday mornings in 1996. It follows Goliath and his clan living back in their original castle, owned by Xanatos. In these 13 episodes, the Gargoyle crew is hounded by a villainous group of gargoyle hunters called the Quarrymen. The Quarrymen become the overarching baddies for the remaining episodes, though we're unable to match the quality of the villains from the first two seasons. The animation also looks cheaper, and the stories aren't quite as compelling. Many Gargoyles fans agree that the revamped series was a huge disappointment, with its lower quality partially responsible for its cancellation. As cartoons come and go, children watching in 1996 might not have realized what was happening. Only adults would have noticed that series creator Greg Weisman was not listed as producer, writer, and creator for this final season. According to Weisman, Disney didn't originally plan for a third season, but their acquisition of ABC led to a revival for Gargoyles as a Saturday morning cartoon, rather than a show formatted for the afternoon. With an entirely new creative team on board, the company wanted him to take a demotion from producer to editor, which ultimately led to his departure. As Weisman recalled, "I tried to guide them, but they didn't really listen too much."